This is the Killer Innovations Podcast with Phil McKinney. Keep in mind that the information and opinions expressed in this podcast are Phil's, and Phil's alone, and they don't necessarily reflect those of his past, current, or future employers. Now, here's Phil McKinney.
As I've said many times in the past in the podcast, the difference between a good idea and a great idea is the timing. Now, based on emails that I've gotten from the listeners, there seems to be some confusion between what I mean by timing and some recent podcasts I've done on the need for patience. The difference is that patience is about the time and money it takes to go from idea to innovation, and the fact that most organizations lack patience. They want the instant result. They want to go from idea to finished innovation as quickly as possible. Many times this is driven by the fact that they're late. They've missed a trend, they've missed the opportunity, and now they're playing catch-up. Timing, on the other hand, is about when to bring the idea to market. It's really that last bit. You've done all the work on the innovation, you've taken the idea, you've translated it into something that's really going to have a huge impact, but now you need to make sure that the market is ready. Now, there's three scenarios that play out here. One is that you're too early. You've created this great innovation. You're way out ahead of everybody else. You're way ahead of all of your competitors. But at the same time, you're ahead of your customers. What you find yourself doing is educating the market before they're ready. You have to explain to them why they're having this problem. They don't agree that maybe the problem doesn't actually even exist or it's not as severe as you think it is. And you spend a lot of dollars explaining the problem and then explaining how your solution fixes the problem. What happens in a lot of cases is that people get so emotionally wrapped up in the idea, they think it's going to be that grand slam home run. So they invest a lot of dollars, they ramp up a huge team, and basically they move too fast and for too long of a period of time because now the product is ready, but the market's not buying. But you've ramped up your burn rate, you've ramped up your expenses to such a level that now you're just burning dollars waiting for the market to be ready. The result is that there's a huge amount of overinvestment. Now, in my background, in my history, what I've seen in these cases is that we tend to be over-optimistic about when the market is ready. And we tend to get into this overinvestment, which then makes your innovation program a target for management to kill it. You need to make sure that you truly understand when that market is ready. Now, the flip side is that you could have just as much of a problem if you're sitting there and you wait to be too late. You're behind the market. You're number 3, number 4, number 5 in the market. The marketplace pegs you as a me too. The customers mentally view you as the, quote, price competitor. Since you're number 4, number 5, and they don't see the differentiation of what you're doing versus the first guys into the market. The result is that you never really gain a market leadership position. In this case, you may have started late. You may have missed the emerging trend that the market timing was correct, or you may have had a solution that wasn't quite ready, and then you end up having to sprint at the end to try to play a catch-up. That can be just as bad. So the question is how do you get it just right? Kind of the Goldilocks syndrome. You don't want to be too early. You don't want to be too late. You want to be just right. Now, in a just right scenario, the problem that's emerged that the market is really looking for to be solved and your solution are aligned and that the customers immediately see the value. You don't need to go through a huge education process to educate them that they have this problem and that you're the solution. The other is that the market awareness or some form of urgency is now emerging but hasn't quite yet peaked. You don't want to be the number 4, number 5 in the market and hit it right when the market peaks and then you're on the downhill side. You need to be ahead of that market peak, which means you have to be willing to take, get comfortable with some level of risk. But the key is that there's market awareness and that there's some sense of urgency that there's this problem that exists and that you have the solution. And the other key is that you're ready now, immediately to fulfill the need. Where a lot of people run into challenges is trying to get this just right, is they get their technology or they get their idea to a certain point, and then they pause it. They pause it saying, okay, we'll do the last 10% when the market emerges. The problem is when to get the timing just right, you may not have enough time to finish that last 10%. Or worse, you underestimate how long it takes to finish that last 10%. So the key is to get it just right. You've got to converge full completion of your idea at just the right time of when the market's going to hit. And this is hugely challenging. Now, I can honestly say that there's very few companies who get it just right. So it's not a situation where you got to hit it on the button. You may be slightly early. You might be slightly late. The key is that you don't want to be, 2 years ahead of the market, and you don't want to be 2 years late compared to everybody else in the market. But you might be a couple of months early, or you might be a couple of months late. The key is that as you get better at this, you get better at predicting when the timing is just right. Now, how do you do this? How do you at least have some form of an attempt that allows you to at least get close to when the market is ready? One is that you do want to be ahead of the market. You want that thought leadership. You want to be thinking about what is going to happen in your market space 2, 3, 4 years out. The typical rule of thumb is let's say it takes an average of 2 years to put your products through the process from a start to finish. Your innovation team should be looking 2x whatever the average product life cycle is. So if you're 2 years to go from start of idea to finish, your innovation team should be looking 4 years out. You want current product life cycle plus 1 in the pipeline, thinking about it, coming up with ideas, conceiving it. So step one is be ahead of the market. You have to have that thought leadership. You have to at least see what's coming down the line. 2, be disciplined not to overinvest. Keep the cost low. Treat every project like it's a startup. Skimp on dollars, skimp on resources. Everybody's doing 3 jobs. The key, though, is keep moving while you wait for the market to be ready. Don't overinvest. Sit back, continue to invest, track the markets, and get the timing right, or at least get in the ballpark of the timing. But don't pause, don't wait. Keep moving the ball forward. If the market is going left or right, move with that market. Adjust your plan. Keep moving. Number 3 is identify and track the weak signals. Now, what do I mean by weak signals? There's a whole series of podcasts in the archive about weak signals. But just to give you kind of the Cliff Notes version, weak signals are early indicators that there's about something that's about to emerge. It's about to become hot. It's becoming the new in thing. In this case, you want to identify and track weak signals that are early indicators that the market is ready or the market's about to become ready. So, for instance, if you're doing, health care for senior citizens, you look at things like changes in legislation, changes in the insurance policies, the availability, of sensor technologies. Come up with a series of early indicators that when those things happen and go a certain direction, they give you the signal that the market is maturing, the market is getting ready, and therefore then you can get the timing to know when you come out with your product. Now, on average, you should be looking at between, 5, 6, 7 weak signals. And then your job is to identify and track. How are you going to measure them? What's the tipping point? What point does a weak signal all of a sudden become a flag that tells you to step on the gas pedal and move? You need to identify those. You need to get alignment and agreement amongst your team. And then you need to have somebody that's going to track those objectively. Don't let the emotion and the passion for the project and ownership of the project, all the things that kind of cloud decision making. You want your weak signals to be objective, something that you can measure, particularly from an outside third party that is clearly going to give you that indicator that you should step on the gas and get ready. And then number 4, be ready to jump. Once you have your weak signals, you need to come up with a series of scenarios and plans. If certain weak signals happen, what's step number 1? What's step number 2? How are you going to accelerate and jump into the market with what you've got on the shelf? You need to have those plans in place, not 3 bullet items. Think through the plans in detail. You need to have resources ready, because when you're ready to jump, you're not going to have time at that point to go raise money or get money lined up. More importantly, what do you do about people? To jump into the market, you need to have resources in the form of people. Now, you don't want to hire all those people and basically having them sit around and twiddle their thumbs, but you need to have a plan in place that supports rapid growth. If you're inside of a large organization, work with HR to come up with a plan that says, if these things happen, we're going to need to be able to hire 10 people to do this and 5 people to do this and 3 people to do that immediately within the first 60 days of some form of agreed upon fire the gun. So, step number 4, critical. Be ready to jump, which means you put all of the plans in place. You're not executing them. You're waiting for the weak signals to give you that indication. But the key is when that weak signal triggers, jump and have your plans in place. Have them thought out. Have them ready to go. So again, in summary, you want to not be too early. We tend to overinvest. We tend to be overenthusiastic. We tend to think we understand the problem. So you don't want to be too early with your innovation. You don't want to be too late. You want to be just right. And to do that, you need to be ahead of the market. Thought leadership is key. And I'm confident, given that you're listening to this podcast, you're already a thought leader in your organization. Formalize your thought leadership. If you're doing this, on the QT, meaning you don't have the official role within your organization of being an innovation leader, this is an opportunity for you to step out. Spend the time. Be looking out 2 times your normal product cycle. Go look at what other people are doing and come up with what is that thought leadership. Be disciplined not to overinvest. Challenge the organization about, do we need to be moving this fast? Can we continue to move progress, but can we keep our expenses low? So therefore, if you keep the expenses low, but you're still making progress, then you reduce the likelihood that management is going to kill the project. 3, identify and track your weak signals. Put those in place. 5, 6, 7 week signals that are clear indicators that the market maturity is there and it's ready to go. And number 4, put all of your plans in place. Be ready to jump. Have your scenarios worked out. If weak signal 1 kicks in, here's the scenario, here's what we do for the plan. If weak signal 2 kicks in, here's the scenario, here's the plan. And make sure you have the resources ready to jump. Money and people. Time is going to be something that you're not going to be able to control as a resource. So it's money and people. And you want to make sure that you don't pull the trigger too early and you don't want to pull the trigger too late. Otherwise, you're going to miss the window. Now, to learn more about how do you translate ideas into innovation, read my book, Beyond the Obvious. The second third of the book is all about project management and execution. How do you get from an idea and actually get something shipping? The book's available in bookstores, online. It's in digital form, hardback, and audio. So again, the book's title is Beyond the Obvious. Thanks for joining this week's show. I know it's a little bit of a short show. I'm in Washington, D.C., wrapping up a series of speeches and talks here and on my way to Denver, but I wanted to get a show out to you since I missed one last week. If you're facing a challenge or you have a question about innovation, about how to make a pitch to your teams, how to teach innovation, one is the blog and the podcast is a great resource, but go ahead and drop me an email at feedback@philmckinney.com. I can't answer all emails personally, but the ones that are the most common questions, I will start addressing those in future shows. So again, send me any questions you might have, things that you're curious about, or things that maybe aren't clear, whether they're in the podcast or on the blog or in the book. So again, feedback at philmckinney.com. Let's connect. You can follow me on Twitter. You can become friends on Facebook, LinkedIn, Tumblr, all of the social sites. My handle is Phil McKinney, all one word. So PhilMckinney, and you can find me on all of the social networks. For more articles on innovation and creativity and how to create innovation teams and how to deal with corporate antibodies and executives within your organization to convince them the importance of innovation, visit philmckinney.com. And thanks for listening to this week's show. We'll have a show out next week on time. In the meantime, have a great week and keep on innovating. Thanks. Bye-bye.